Axl Rose didn't mean to destroy Guns N' Roses. He truly believed he was saving something only he could understand. That's the irony of genius. The same fire that makes you shine eventually burns you down. Between tragedy and fame, he turned rock and roll into a war zone of glory and chaos, leading the band like a mad conductor. But what happens when the maestro starts losing the beat? When the dream becomes a prison and the crowd's roar no longer feels like home? For years, Axl was both the heart and the poison of Guns N' Roses. A perfectionist, impossible, unpredictable, yet magnetic. He fought everyone and everything, bandmates, journalists, even time itself. And somehow, it was that fight that almost tore the empire apart. The line between genius and self-destruction is razor thin, and Axl danced on it with his eyes closed. Controversial icons always do that. They create eternity, but they pay for it with their sanity. But this story isn't just about destruction. It's about the price of being extraordinary. Because the same man who nearly ended Guns N' Roses was also the only one who could keep it alive. And what he discovered along the way might just reveal the most human and most tragic side of the myth. Born in the chaos of Los Angeles, Guns N' Roses felt less like a band and more like a street gang with guitars. The Sunset Strip was their battlefield. Sweaty clubs, bad deals, and broken dreams. Out of that mess came something raw and dangerous, a perfect mix of tragedy and fame. They were musical gladiators, armed with distortion and defiance, proving that brilliance and destruction could live inside the same body. Guns N' Roses was a grenade without a pin, genius ready to explode. Every show felt like the world could end right there on stage. That collision between decadence and glory made them unstoppable. Fans didn't just listen to them, they lived through them. The misfits, the rebels, the dreamers. Everyone saw a piece of themselves in those songs. The danger was part of the beauty. But their rebellion wasn't an act, it was their DNA. Axl, Slash, Duff, Izzy, and Adler were brothers by chaos, loyal only to the music. They didn't play rock, they embodied it. Controversial icons, yes, but poets of destruction. And like every great myth, this one was destined to reveal its hero and its villain. Axl Rose was a battlefield all by himself, a war between genius and madness. His perfectionism bordered on obsession, the kind that turns tragedy and fame into the same story. He didn't just want to make music, he wanted to create something immortal. But that kind of hunger has a cost, and Axl crossed that line more than once. Watching him was like seeing a maestro conduct a sinking ship. And somehow, people still applauded. He was a mix of Freddie Mercury's passion and Michael Jackson's intensity, but with a fuse half as long. Every delay, every fight, every walk-off was part of his twisted search for perfection. He didn't care who he hurt, not out of arrogance, but out of conviction. He believed Guns N' Roses deserved nothing less than greatness, even if it meant burning bridges. That blend of decadence and glory was his signature. And behind that chaos, a heart that felt everything. Axl wrote lyrics that bled pain, anger, love, loneliness. You didn't just hear him, you felt him. Controversial icons often walk that fine line, adored and hated in equal measure. And as Axl's grip tightened, the cracks began to show. Because when control becomes obsession, the empire starts to crumble. It was like watching a castle crumble, brick by brick. What started as brotherhood turned into betrayal. When Steven Adler was fired, fans thought it was just another lineup change. But when Izzy walked away, you could smell the tragedy and fame colliding for real. Slash and Duff tried to hold the walls together, but even legends get tired. The empire was falling, slowly, painfully, inevitably. Behind closed doors, it was pure human drama. Friends became strangers, meetings turned into trials, and the stage, once their temple, became a battlefield. Nights went silent where laughter used to live. That tension between decadence and glory was poetic, almost Shakespearean. The higher they climbed, the harder they fell. And Axl? He thought he was saving the band, when in truth he was tearing it apart. Power isolates, genius consumes, and both had him by the throat. Controversial icons don't just inspire, they terrify. And while the fans watched the collapse, the myth only grew. Because in rock and roll, the darker the fall, the brighter the legend. After the fall, Axl vanished into his own kingdom, a fortress of sound, paranoia, and perfection. Chinese democracy was supposed to be his redemption story, but it became a 15-year odyssey of obsession. Millions spent, countless musicians hired and fired, a creative black hole where tragedy and fame danced hand in hand. It was rock's Apocalypse Now, a masterpiece that nearly killed its creator. Each track sounded like a confession, genius and despair bleeding through every lyric. Critics called it madness, fans called it vision. Maybe both were right. That tension between decadence and glory was what made it fascinating, part genius, part ghost story. Axl wasn't just chasing a sound, he was chasing himself. When the album finally dropped in 2008, the world had changed. Rock wasn't king anymore, but the name Guns N' Roses still shook the ground. The reception was mixed, confusion, awe, respect. But one thing was certain, Axl had turned his chaos into art. Controversial? Always. Human? More than ever. Because sometimes greatness doesn't look like victory, it looks like survival. Axl Rose became a ghost in his own empire, a king locked in a golden cage. Surrounded by bodyguards, lawyers, and memories, he lived somewhere between isolation and nostalgia. That's the cruel deal with tragedy and fame. The bigger the stage, the emptier the backstage. Maybe he never realized that Guns N' Roses was never just him. It was them. The brotherhood, the chaos, the spark they all shared. Those who saw him during those years said he looked tired, like a man haunted by his own reflection. The interviews faded, the smiles disappeared, but the myth grew stronger. Controversial icons always pay the highest price for living too intensely. Axl was the living embodiment of decadence and glory, brilliant but broken inside. Maybe deep down he just wanted peace. But how do you find peace when the world still expects rebellion? When every move is judged through the lens of the past? The loneliness of a king isn't about being forgotten. It's about being remembered for all the wrong reasons. Yet destiny had one more twist for him, a reunion that nobody saw coming. When Axl, Slash, and Duff finally shared the same stage again, time itself seemed to pause. It was like watching old warriors realize the battle was never between them, but with the years they'd lost. That moment blended tragedy and fame into something sacred. Nobody believed it could happen, and maybe that's why it felt so powerful. It wasn't just a concert, it was a resurrection. Age had softened them. The wildness turned into wisdom. Slash played with the calm of a man who'd made peace with his ghosts. Duff smiled like someone who'd finally exhaled after decades. And Axl, he looked human again. That eternal clash between decadence and glory had transformed into forgiveness. Controversial icons, once divided, were whole again, and somehow more legendary for it. The crowd cried, screamed, laughed. It wasn't nostalgia, it was belonging. Every note reminded people of who they once were when rock ruled the world. In that moment, Guns N' Roses wasn't just a band. It was proof that time breaks us, but music can heal us. Yet one final question lingered in the air. What remains when the last chord fades? Guns N' Roses left a mark deeper than distortion or fame. They were the mirror of a generation that learned tragedy and fame are two sides of the same coin. Their songs weren't just anthems, they were lifelines. Sweet Child of Mine, Welcome to the Jungle, they still echo because they remind us of something raw, something honest. Living hard might destroy you, but damn, it makes life unforgettable. Their legacy isn't just musical, it's emotional. Guns taught the world that decadence and glory can live inside the same soul, that destruction can be another form of rebirth. Controversial icons aren't meant to be understood, they're meant to be felt. Every new generation picks up a guitar trying to chase that same wild spirit, that hunger that refuses to die. Maybe rock has changed, but the myth remains. Guns N' Roses isn't just a band, it's a living legend about the cost of genius and the beauty of imperfection. Because as long as someone's out there singing about pain, love, and rebellion, the spirit of Guns will never fade. In the end, Axl's greatest enemy was never Slash, Duff, or the media. It was himself. Guns N' Roses survived not because it was perfect, but because it was real. That's the hidden truth behind all that tragedy and fame. Greatness isn't about never breaking. It's about learning how to rebuild. Every fight, every silence, every heartbreak was part of one epic lesson, that even chaos can create something eternal. And maybe Axl's story hits home because we all have a bit of that fire inside. Who hasn't tried to control everything, believing it was the only way to make it work? Who hasn't ruined something beautiful while trying to save it? The only difference is, Axl did it in front of the whole world. Controversial icons are just mirrors of us, only louder, messier, and more honest. So if this story made you think, don't let it end here. Use it. Question your own chaos, your ambitions, your silence. Maybe what's breaking you is exactly what's meant to transform you. And if you want to keep diving into stories of glory, pain, and redemption, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the notifications, because the next chapter might just blow your mind.